Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I see there's quite a few people here and more are coming on right now as we speak. I do apologize for the brief delay. We were facing some technical difficulties here, but we seem to have gotten that sorted out. So first things first, I do want to bring something to your attention. Many of you are already aware, many of you in our community who've been following us and following the news of recent. Saj, his mom is in hospital. She's not doing well. Unfortunately, her situation has deteriorated. It's gotten worse. It's not looking very good right now. And we send our thoughts and prayers to him and his family in this difficult time. I know many of you, I've gotten messages from many of you, and the admins have conveyed that that you have sent your well wishes to Saj and his family in this time, and I really want to appreciate all of the well wishers for their kind sentiment. Saj has been heavily involved in this, despite all the stuff that he's been going through, all the family issues and all of this. He's been really involved in the day-to-day. He's been constantly messaging, and he's been in constant contact with us. And us as a leadership team are kind of having to push him to, focus on what's important for him at this time, which is attending to his family. But nonetheless, he's been very active in communication with us. But again, we send our best wishes to him and the family at this time. Having said that, I do want to start off by addressing some of the questions you guys have and some of this, and we'll get to all of that. But before we do that, I want to give you some exciting news that we have that's just gone out, but I'm going to pass that over to Munawar, who's going to share that with you about what's been going on with the Sparkster team behind the scenes and what news we have to share with you. Munawar?
Hey everyone. So yeah, as Shabir said, we have some really exciting stuff for you. For those of you who are following the GitHub, if you did subscribe and you received notifications, you saw that earlier this morning we did a push. This is version 0.2 of our blockchain. So I do want to make that clear. It is still in alpha stages, but it is version 0.2. And a few things you'll notice. Number one, there is a change log now on the GitHub. You'll be able to go and see, what we've fixed, what we've enhanced, and stuff like that, right? Number two, which is something that a lot of you have been asking for a very long time, which is developer documentation. It is up now. If you go to the GitHub and you scroll down to the developer documentation section, there's a link there that you can click that will take you directly to a page which has a bunch of examples, things like code samples, things like, how do I use the blockchain? How do I code on it, right? And we also provide some simple sample programs that you'll be able to experiment with and stuff like that. One of the main things I want to highlight here is that you are able to save documents and stuff like that now. So for those of you who have been playing around with our no-code platform, you'll remember this term documents, right? So we ended up creating templates and documents. And for those of you who are tech savvy, a template is a class and a document is an object. So now on the blockchain, you're able to create documents, you're able to update documents, delete them and fetch them. And all the information you need is in the developer documentation, so you can go and check it out. For those of you that are familiar with JavaScript, it'll be very simple for you to get up and running with this information. Anything else you want to add, Shabir?
Excellent. No, I just want to thank you for sharing that. And I really want to appreciate our tech team for delivering this as promised. It's been a lot of work, and they've been working around the clock to make this happen. So I want to appreciate them for this and getting this out on. Also, we're going to be pushing out a demo video that's going to walk you through and give you all the details of what you're seeing. That's in the works right now, and we're working on that.
So there's a demo, just like I mentioned, we allow you to interact with documents on the blockchain now, and this essentially means that you can store state information on the blockchain, right? So the demo that we'll be putting out will show you how to do that step by step. If you know, because sometimes the developer documentation is not sufficient enough. So we do have some videos coming up that will show you how to do all that. One of the main features I wanted to highlight, I think, in the blockchain, which is really important, is for those of you who ran it in our previous iteration, you saw all the messages dumping to the console, right? There's proper logging in the blockchain node programs now, and you can specify your log levels just like you would in something like Ethereum or a Bitcoin node or something like that. So that's one of the big highlights of this release is we've implemented proper logging. We've also done a lot of memory management behind the scenes. So you'll notice that these nodes run a lot more efficiently than the last version.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. And again, Manor, Amit, and their leadership of the tech team has been phenomenal. Our tech team has done a really great job, Prasad and the likes. And we applaud them for this effort, and we thank you as a community for enabling this to happen and your resilience and support towards us. And again, the demos to come, it's imminent, and you'll be able to go through that, and it'll be really exciting. Having said all this, I want to speak to you and the community for a moment. I know we've gone through phases and waves, and I want to shed some light on some things as we go forward, and hopefully this can help alleviate some concerns that you may have. In our group, we have people who who have loved the Sparkster project and have been extremely supportive of us throughout our endeavors. Week after week, month after month, all the way through from the beginning. And many of you are still in that category of extremely supportive and showing your enthusiasm for us and our project. There's others of you who fell in love with the Sparkster project and have been supportive of us throughout the ways, but you seemingly may be on the fence at the moment. Time has dissipated, the markets have taken a turn, and you're on the fence. You're not really sure what to think. And many of the people in the first category have tried to alleviate your concerns, but you may be thinking, I don't know, I want to hear it from themselves. So I want to speak to you in particular today and try to help you understand what we're working on here at Sparkster and where we are in that journey so that any concerns that you may have may be alleviated. Having said that, I want to make it really clear from the get-go. In terms of our strategy, nothing's really changed in terms of our vision. We're still the same Sparkster company that you fell in love with during our ICO phase or early on in the project. We have the Sparkster no-code platform, which is focused on allowing you to build decentralized software without any code. And we have the Sparkster decentralized cloud. Nothing about that has changed whatsoever. In particular, these hardware nodes and what we're doing with respect to our beachhead, if you will, in terms of Fortune 500 companies and working with them, this is just an expansion of the decentralized cloud. And what I mean by that is our efforts that we're working on right now at Sparksters from the business side is getting clientele that are in the real world economy, Fortune 500 companies. And we're delivering these hardware nodes, which are simply storage and compute nodes, as you may have known them formally. And we're delivering this and we're expanding the realm of users of Sparkster to people beyond the blockchain and crypto space. We're trying to make this ubiquitous and get this into households around the globe that are not simply limited to just the blockchain or crypto space towards our vision of mainstream adoption. If I can give you an example, many companies go through this process, and this is not something that is new. I'll give you an example of several companies. Google, for example. When Google first emerged as a company, they were always a search engine company. However, when they were trying to make revenue as a company, their focus was on trying to sell, for example, initially at least, their services in terms of how to build a search engine. They were trying to help other search engines become better. That's the service they were selling. This wasn't very successful. When they got to the point where they started with Google AdWords, when Google AdWords emerged, Google became a multi-billion-dollar company almost seemingly overnight, very, very quickly, very, very rapidly. But it wasn't until Google AdWords emerged and they became a forefront leader in terms of advertising that they were able to generate revenue in the capacity that they were able to. But at the same time, Google never changed as a company. It was still a search engine company. Another example is PayPal. PayPal actually started as a cryptographic company, and its online payments were actually secondary. But that's where the revenue was generated from. Apple is another example. Apple has always been a consumer electronics, consumer technology company. But in the 90s, especially 93 to 97, around that era, Apple was suffering. This is when Steve Jobs was ousted. He had gone out and he started, he worked on Next, he worked on Pixar. But then at some point in time, Apple had expanded so much and they had lost their vision. So they were even starting to make CD players. They were starting to make televisions. They were throwing everything to the wall, seeing what could happen. And it wasn't until Steve Jobs came back and said that we need to focus on what we do best. And Apple, and according to him, Apple, what they do best is build beautiful consumer technology. And that's what he focused. So he pared away and he removed everything. And he focused on what they do best. And they came back with the iMac. And then eventually they got into the iPod and the iPhone, and the rest is history. But nothing changed during that whole time. They were still making consumer electronics, consumer technology. And analogously, the same way, Sparkster is a company that is focused on the Sparkster decentralized cloud. That hasn't changed. Nothing about that has changed. The hardware nodes are just a step towards that direction. So it's not like we're changing anything here at all. And if you'll remember, if you go back to the early days of Sparkster, we had the no-code platform and we actually delivered that, and it's done. What we were focused on in terms of our roadmap and what we're focused on was actually the decentralized cloud, and we've been delivering on that. Having said that, we've also heard your sentiment, that is the community sentiment, about the roadmap and about the website. And I'm pleased to announce that we're actually working on that right now, and we have made substantial progress towards that, and you will be seeing a new roadmap, and you will be seeing a new updated website. We've heard the voice of the community, and we will be delivering on that, rest assured. But I can't emphasize this enough. I can't emphasize this enough. Nothing in terms of our strategy has changed. We still have the same vision. We're just focused on a beachhead. And what that beachhead means is that it comes from, it's an entrepreneurial term that focuses on strategy. That is, what is the situation that where you're going to, whenever there's a military strike, usually if there's a body of water that you can take over, you do that. So an example of that is World War II. I don't want to get too much into detail, but you need to find something where you can generate revenue and take over that market. And so you have a substantial piece of that market, then you can expand it. And that's the phase that we're in. What happens if you don't take this seriously? What happens if you don't put the effort that's required in this phase? You end up going down a path, and you end up going down a line in the woods or in the jungle, and you don't make revenue. And then you have to come back, and then you have to find another path. Ultimately, this is to save time for us as a company, for you as an investor. This is to make sure that as a community, we're on the same page. And that's why it's so vital. But nothing's changed with respect to that. The same hardware, the hardware nodes just expand that vision further. And we're very, very committed to that. So I wanted to make that clear. At the same time, many of you have asked and must be wondering with respect to the market conditions, with respect to what our strategy and our plan is, with respect to when we're going to unlock and all of these things. And to that point, we at Sparkster, we're trying to focus on what we can control. and put our efforts there. We can control our technology. We can control our marketing, and I'll shed some light on that in a moment. We can control our strategy. The markets are the markets. But we are looking at some consensus from analysts and people who are focused on the markets and what they're saying. And what we're looking for is there some consensus about this being the bull market? Is there some consistent consensus about support beyond a certain point? And we haven't seen that as of yet. But once we start to see that consensus emerge, you'll have your answer right there. But we are making the moves to make this this unlock as soon as possible. But the market needs to show that there's support. The market needs to show that there's consensus about this support, and that's really what we're focused on. Another point that I wanted to draw your attention to is our strategic partners and marketing at large. I mentioned in the past AMA that we are focused on marketing, and that's a lot of what I do and the team does in terms of relationship development. And we're marketing, but we're marketing specifically to executives at Fortune 500 companies. And I can appreciate that some of you maybe you may want to know a bit more about how do these partnerships work, what's going on about them, and are these substantive? I want to make you well aware that these are very substantive partnerships, because in the real world, in the Fortune 500 space, you don't make partnerships without substantive use cases. That is, without solving real world problems. And so that's what we're doing. But I mentioned before, we have NDAs in place, non-disclosure agreements. We can't talk too much about this. And I know that that can be frustrating for some people, because you want to know more, and when we can't really tell you much. And I want to shed some light about why that is. The reason for that is these NDAs are drafted by Fortune 500 companies who have enormous amounts of litigation, lawyers, big staff of lawyers, and they're publicly traded. And what that means is information is very sensitive. Information is very sensitive because their stocks are traded publicly, and therefore insider trading or something of this nature can be a big issue. And therefore they're very, very careful about how they release information. If we were to go and to put out information about our partnerships with other companies and other corporations, which are very public in nature, this can affect our relationship with them. And not only that, this can put them in troubled waters and heat. So I ask you to bear with us in this time. We're making very strategic goals in the short term as well as in the long term. Companies like Amazon, they play things on a very long horizon, and we're trying to be here for the long run. We've always made that clear as a company. So we're playing on that horizon. So we will make the information known to you as it is, as we're allowed to make it known to you. But I would request that you bear with us on this. But at the same time, I want to shed light on how strategic our vision has been and how much we've already gotten thus far. And many of you may have seen that one of our key partners that has been a partner of Sparkster for some time now is Labellium. We have a collaboration with Labellium. They do the hardware, we do the software. We have a strong collaboration with them. And Labellium has just partnered with Alibaba. In fact, Alibaba Cloud. And this is something we're extremely excited about here at Sparkster. This is not something that should be taken lightly. So we've made these strategic partnerships by solving real-world problems and real-world use cases, which are now showing fruits. Labellium has partnered with Alibaba and their cloud division. We are part of Labellium's ecosystem. This is how relationships are developed. At the same time, we're a very, very strong partner of and collaborator with ARM Inc. I've mentioned this in previous times. ARM is a company that is extremely prevalent, and it's a juggernaut in the technology space, in particular the semiconductor space. Roughly, analysts estimate roughly 90% of all mobile chip device design for cell phones and mobile phones, the design goes through ARM in the mobile chip space for cell phones in particular. That's not a small number. That means that these devices, cell phones, have become ubiquitous today, and people have them everywhere. ARM is part of that ecosystem. ARM is also owned by SoftBank. This is where I really want to draw your attention. The ecosystem that SoftBank provides is almost second to none. Because SoftBank is the company that owns ARM, which we're partnered with, but SoftBank is also the company that bankrolled Alibaba. And you'll start to see how all these dots connect. Roughly, one of the biggest stakeholders in Alibaba today, roughly 30% of ownership, is SoftBank. Also, the ownership, majority stakeholder ownership of Sprint, the telecom provider in the US, is SoftBank. Uber, SoftBank has a substantial ownership stake in Uber as well. I want you to understand the vision of what we're charting and how we're making this ecosystem come together. So SoftBank is not to be taken lightly. And the news with respect to Labellium and Alibaba Cloud collaborating is not to be taken lightly either. So I want you to understand these relationships that we're building with these top tier firms, these top caliber companies, is not to be taken lightly. SoftBank is also the company that owns Boston Dynamics, by the way. So their ecosystem is very extensive, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. But I can understand and I can appreciate as an investor that for some, their patience, they may be saying that, we've been patient for so long, how much longer? And I wanted to say that that we shouldn't be penny wise and pound foolish. We've waited so long, and I can appreciate your patience, but let's not make that go to waste at this time. So it's really, really important to keep that in mind as we move forward. And those partnerships that we're working on today and have been working on for the past few months will show fruit in the not too distant future. So those will come to life. So I wanted to make that clear that we are marketing, and we're marketing to the right people, and we're making sure that we have these strong relationships developed. At the same time, it was brought to my attention that there may have been some concern amongst the community with respect to perhaps certain individuals, investors who may have been large stakeholders, or maybe whales, if that terminology can be used, or big bag holders. And I wanted to be very clear that no such thing exists in Sparkster. We had a certain number of investors, roughly 68 or so investors, but no investor got more than 150 ETH allocation. That has held true from the beginning until the end and throughout. No individual has a large stake in Sparkster, to the effect that the largest stake that you'll find in Sparkster is a fraction of a percent. A fraction, literally. And so there is no individual who has a monopoly or has a very large bag. There are no whales, there are no big bags in Sparkster. We have said this from the beginning, and we've repeated it throughout. So rest assured that that is not the case, despite what people may be saying, despite what misinformation there may be there. I want that to be clear, that there's no such thing. We were very meticulous about making sure that we play by the rules. We make sure that there's nobody who has an allocation that is of substantial nature. And this is why you notice that the Sparkster project was by design different. Whether it's from the technology and solving real world problems, or whether that is from the ICO, whatever aspect, we've tried to make that immensely clear throughout. So I hope this helps to alleviate some concerns that you had, and I hope that you can appreciate the work that we're doing. We've been pushing out the technology. You have the code, and there's a demo coming up. We're making strategic, powerful partnerships in this space, and the fruits of which you'll see very, very soon. It's not in the distant future, and we're also monitoring the markets very closely. We're just waiting for consensus amongst specialists in this space, and once that's realized, you'll be delighted, and I'm sure many of you are. So I'd ask you to remember the company that you fell in love with, the Sparkster. We're the same company. Our strategy hasn't changed. We're just simply like Google. We're simply like Apple in that phase where they're looking for their revenue generation model. Google was still a search engine company. Apple was still a consumer technology company. We're still a decentralized cloud company. Nothing about that has changed. Having said that, I want to open this up perhaps to some questions. If you do have some questions, maybe you can put that in the Telegram, and we'll see if we can address those. Anything else you wanted to add in, Manor? Again, I do want to say I want to thank the tech team as much as possible. There's a demo video coming out very soon that will walk you through all of that. But many kudos to them. I also, with respect to Saj, I also want to reiterate the point that I got the messages that many of you sent, the well wishes for Saj. And I want to appreciate and applaud all of you for the well wishes. Saj appreciates it greatly. We'll be conveying those sentiments to him, and I can understand as a person, as an individual, your heart and mind is with Saj and his family at this moment. But as an investor, I can definitely appreciate that you still want this project to go on and you want progress towards that end. And I want to assure you that we're here for that. Myself, Munawar, Amit, the technology team, Niru, we're all still here. We haven't gone anywhere. And Saj is still in constant contact. It's just we want him to focus on his family right now. And rest assured, hopefully things will take a turn for the better. Hopefully his mom gets better, and he'll be back with us with these AMAs as well. But you can't forecast many of these things many a times. So let's see what we've got here. So see what we got. I've also seen some messages from many of you that have been sent to me. Why not collaborate with this project or that project, either in the blockchain cryptocurrency space or outside of it? If you have connections, if you have relationships in either space, please do reach out to us. Reach out to our admins. You can email us and do connect with us to let us know about these relationships. And if they are actually real world use cases that are valuable, we would be delighted to entertain them, and we'd love to collaborate. So please do facilitate those if you have them. We have no obligation. We have no objection to that. And what else are we seeing here? And like I said, with respect to our strategy, nothing has changed. Those hardware nodes, I'm seeing questions about them. Those hardware nodes are storage and compute nodes. It's just what we're doing is we're delivering that value of the Sparkster decentralized cloud, not only in the blockchain and cryptocurrency space, but we're extending that to the real world. And this helps us get more rapid mass adoption. That's all. This is still part of that greater vision. Nothing's changed with respect to that. Don't get bogged down by simply by terminology or phraseology. The language that many Fortune 500 companies use, there may be a little bit of difference in terms of the language that they use, but rest assured, the essence is the same. So nothing's changed on that front. You'll have utility there with respect to that. The community participation is extremely important to us. There is no doubt about that. This is why we spend so much time with our AMAs. This is why we spend so much time communicating with our community, because you're extremely important to us, and and you've been supporting us throughout. So I hope this has helped to alleviate any concerns that you may have. And I do want to thank you all for your appreciation. I also want to thank our admins for their level of support and working with us throughout this time, and working with all of you and conveying your concerns to us. We have heard it and we're implementing it. Again, we're working on the website, so stay tuned for news about that. We're working on the roadmap. We have some exciting news that's coming right around the horizon, right around the corner. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your support. I want to thank you for your thoughts and prayers for Saj and his family throughout this time. I want to reiterate, we haven't changed our strategy. The strategy is the same. And I wanted to let you know about that there's nobody with more than 150 Ether allocations. It's just, it just is what it is. Please don't get derailed. That slice was divided amongst 68 investors with 150 Ether. There's no large whales in Sparkster. And just thank you. So thank you for your support, and I hope that this helps calm and alleviate any concerns that you have, and I'll be in the group to talk to you very soon. So with that, we'll close out this AMA. Thank you so much.